Hello viewers, through this video I will try to give you a very little insight about a text, and the title of the text is Sexual Politics, written by Kate Millett. The book Sexual Politics, it was actually a debut book by an American writer and activist, Kate Millett, and it was based on her PhD dissertation at Columbia University. It was first published in 1970 by Doubleday, and it is regarded as a classic of feminism and one of the radical feminist literary texts. It is also a formative piece in shaping the intentions of the second wave feminist movement. We all know there are four wave of feminist movement, and right now with Me Too movement, the fourth or fifth is going on. I'm not sure. You can check it out, or you can verify. And through this text, Sexual Politics, the writer has tried to focus on how women are treated, or women are represented politically in various realm or field. And it is an explicit focus uh, on some Western literary works or literature. And according to the author Millett, Western literature, it always reflects patriarchal constructions and heteronormativity of society. She further argues that men have established power over women, and this has been going on since time immemorial. That men have created some kinds of structure to rule over women, but that this power is the result of social construct rather than innate or biological qualities. So she has tried to argue that women have been under men's subjugation through various societal norms, but if we talk about biologically, the power of women are never less. They are always equal to men. Only sociological construction or societal rules try to subjugate, dominate women in the patriarchal society. And Millett has argued that sex has a frequently neglected political aspect. And it goes on to discuss the role that patriarchy plays in sexual relations, looking especially in the works of D.H. Lawrence. You must have read modern writer D.H. Lawrence. His works are often based on women and sexual realm, and very minute relationship in a society, and Henry Miller and Norman Mailer. So she has tried to critique these three writers, that is D.S. Lawrence, that are Henry Miller and Norman Mailer. I hope you all have studied these three writers. Millett argues that these authors view and she discusses sex in a patriarchal and sexist way. In contrast, she has also applauded at length include Sigmund Freud's George Meredith, John Ruskin, and John Stuart Mill. Apart from that, Sexual Politics, it was largely influenced by Simone de Beauvoir's 1949 book, The Second Sex, although Beauvoir's text is known for being more intellectually focused and less emotionally invigorating than Millett's text. Okay, I hope you have understood, and I'm sorry for my pronunciation. Okay, let's move on. So now let's try to know sexual politics in a very simple way, or in a very simple explanation. Okay, we often hear in our society, in our house, in our family talks that this girl or that woman, she has got the job, and she has got the job not because of virtue, not because of her talent. She might have got that job with the help of that boss. That boss might have helped her to get that job, and that might have been done through some kind of physical attachment. So that kinds of thing we often hear. So that is also a part of sexual politics. Very simple, right? Let's try to explain it in a very academic way. So when we hear stories of someone sleeping their way to the top of their career or profession, or bribing their boss to get more benefits, those are also a form of sexual politics, because one person has more power over the other. So this kind of thing we must have heard, right? So that is a simple example of sexual politics. And in school too, we often hear that, oh, she has got high marks in that subject. Oh, that means that girl or that student, she might have some kind of closeness with that teacher, right? So that thinking is a sexual politics. These kind of innumerable instances of sexual politics you have seen, you have experienced, you have heard, right? And uh, w- in this video, at the beginning of our discussion, I have mentioned that this work, Sexual Politics, it is influenced by Simone de Beauvoir's 1949 book, The Second Sex, where the writer has also, Beauvoir has also tried to depict the condition of women, why women are like this, or why women have not given the due credit, due opportunities they deserve. Okay, so in this work, The Second Sex, French existentialist philosopher Simone de Beauvoir, the author has discussed the treatment of women in the present society as well as throughout all of history. Beauvoir researched and wrote the book in about 14 months between 946 and 949, and uh, yes, it is women, sorry. Beaver researched and wrote the book in about 14 months between 946 and 949, and she has published the work in two volumes, that is, Facts and Myths and Lived Experience. Some chapters first appear in the journal Les Temps Moderns, and one of Beaver's best known and controversial books, it was also banned by the Vatican. And The Second Sex, it is also regarded as a groundbreaking work of feminist philosophy, and it was the starting inspiration point of second wave feminism. And Sexual Politics, it has been seen as a classic feminist text, and it's said to be the first book of academic feminist literary criticism and one of the first feminist books of the decade to raise nationwide male ire. And through this work, the writer has delineated writers like Betty Friedan and her work The Feminine Mystic in 1963, published in 1963, and Germaine Greer's The Female Inans 1970. Its status has declined. Like this, okay? Okay, now let's try to know about the author. Catherine Murray Millett, she was born on September 14, 1934 and died on 6 September 2017. She was an American feminist writer, educator, artist, and activist. She had attended the University of Oxford, and she was the first American woman to be awarded a degree with first-class honors after studying at St. Hilda's College, Oxford. She has been described as a seminal influence on second-wave feminism, and she is best known for her work Sexual Politics 1970. This we have already talked. Now let's try to know the summary of this book in a very brief words. The book Sexual Politics, it opens with brief exploration of fiction by Henry Miller, Norman Mailer, and Jean Genet. And presenting this as the incidence of sexual politics, Miller has examined how power operates within sexual relationship, and it builds an argument that the relationship between the sexes, it is a political issue revolving around the dominance of one group by another. And the second chapter, it makes this argument more explicit, offering an analysis of patriarchal rule in contemporary and historical societies. Besides, Millett has explored how traditional chains of male dominance as natural enforced legitimization before critiquing this understanding and presenting traditional sex roles and patriarchal authority and broadly as a consequence of cultural conditioning. So here the writer has tried to depict how sex roles are created and formulated and enforced by the patriarchal society, that after the birth of a baby, all the works of the house along with the baby, it will be taken care by the mother or by the woman. Okay, if a woman works, then too that woman must take care her family, her household, and her children. So this is a sex role that is done by the male or by the patriarchal society. So that thing the writer has tried to say, and how it has influenced the societal thinking and human civilization as a whole. And then Millett next examines the first phase of the sexual revolution between 1830 and 1930. Although this period is known for its prudishness and repression, a great deal of radical change nevertheless took place in the position of sex. The women's movement made significant progress in opening up education for women and securing suffrage. Suffrage, you must have heard, to the right to vote, as well as challenging and defending traditional and understanding of sex, identity and the family in literature and politics. Although it made significant advances, the first phase of the sexual revolution was ultimately incomplete in its failure to overthrow patriarchal rule, change the psychological foundations of traditional sex roles, and liberate sexuality from the social, mores, and political restrictions of the time. The failure of sexual revolution's first phase paved the way for the counter-revolution, a range of reactionary moves intended to re-establish patriarchal rule and traditional sex roles. Millett has explored the first through the analysis of Nazi Germany and Soviet Union. She examines how Nazi Germany coopted feminist struggle into its movements and vigorously worked to re-establish limiting models of femininity dedicated to motherhood and the traditional family before discussing how Soviet efforts to overthrow patriarchy and the family were ultimately unsuccessful. This is followed by analysis of how the majority of the counter-revolution was actually enacted not by repressive political forces but by the social sciences, with a particular focus on the works of Sigmund Freud. She explores how these emerging disciplines legitimize traditional sex roles by giving them a veneer of scientific respectability. So this all paragraph it itself is self-explanatory. I don't have to explain it. The book then closes with 4 chapters discussing in greater detail the works of D.S. Lawrence, Henry Miller, Norman Mailer, and Jean Genet. The first of these explores Lawrence Hero's manipulation of women and the co-opting of sexual liberation as a means of re-establishing traditional sex roles. There is also an analysis of Lawrence's dissatisfaction with women and his focus on male relationships and his consideration of love and sexuality in terms of power. And it also discusses Miller, Millett and their works and how it had created societal norms about women, and how the writer has also examined how this writer reduced women to the role of subject for male gratification. And the chapter on Miller, it also explores how his work obsesses over sexualized male violence with the notion that masculinity must be demonstrated at all times and a great fear of homosexuality undermining American virility. This is also expressed. And the final chapter, it focuses on a more positive reading of the works of Genet, examining how he uses the homosexual subcultures of his early novels to reflect and satirize heterosexual power relations before developing into a more focused attack in his later plays, which also portrays marginalized groups of various types challenging their oppression with increasing fury and focus. Okay, so that's it. This I have tried to tell you in a very brief way. I hope you will read the text, and please read the text.